So today with us on Stool Talk, we honor first guest of the year, the new year 2024. Here on Stool Talk, we walk in our purpose, on purpose, being intentional. Today we have a very, very special guest, legendary, All Ohio, 1987, inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2012. Just a phenomenal athlete, man. When I was growing up, I used to hear different things about Calvin Banks. Then I started working with him. I'm like, man, you the guy that they've been talking about, the standout at St. Francis. Shows great humility, always there, community driven. And today we're gonna have the luxury of him sitting down with us. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So, how did all this start for you, man? The basketball. What age was you, and when did you first pick up a ball?
So I can remember my very first basketball game. It was at a church on Collingwood, and I'm not sure what the cross street was, but I had to have been in about the kindergarten.
Okay.
And I don't remember much about the game. I just remember being so excited about going out to play, man. Just overly excited, and so that's kind of what drove that memory into my head was just the excitement that I had at the time of playing that game. So I don't remember. I remember nothing about the game. I just remember everything leading up to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you see like your skills starting to take up, develop, and you starting to take off, and you seeing that you were actually like good?
So that's hard to say. So of course, growing up in the hood, man, you at the park, you playing every day, and back when I was growing up, I played at City Park, I played at Smith Park. There was so much talent coming out of both of those parks at the time, man, to the point where I really wasn't able to gauge myself like, oh, I'm doing good. I was just happy to get on the court half the time because a lot of them guys that was playing, man, was, like I said, the talent base out of coming out of both of those parks at the time, man, was phenomenal. You had a little bit of everybody, and everybody could play back then. So, I probably, I guess about the seventh or eighth grade was when I first. Well, no, I'll take that back. I'll say about the sixth grade was when I really started taking a real liking to the game. And what happened, I think, about the sixth grade was that was around the time when Magic and Bird came into the league, and all the hype around them, and prior to that, when they were in college and all that stuff. So there was a big hubbub behind coming around basketball at that time, and so that kind of piqued my interest. But my original first love was football.
Okay.
Yeah, my original first love. Coming out of the neighborhood, man, every street had their own team, and we'd all meet up at Smith Park, man, and go at it. And so that was my first real love, and I grew up on Palmwood, so I was one of the kids on the Palmwood Raiders at the time. That was that was the name of the team, Palmwood Raiders.
Yeah, so that physicality helped you definitely in basketball because you were physical from the football. What
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
where did you hoop at in sixth grade, and then where did you go in junior high?
So in sixth grade, I played at Washington Elementary, and matter of fact, my coach from Washington Elementary, Bobby Fletcher, he always said, man, Calvin, if you work hard at this game, man, you're gonna be good. He always told me that, and I guess I just bought into it.
So
So
when
yeah, that's Washington. Washington Elementary was my elementary school, and then I went to Robinson Junior High School after that.
Okay.
So
So
I played.
what made you go to St. Francis? Did they come recruit you, or is that somewhere you wanted to go for better education? How did that come about?
So I ended up at originally I was at Maumee Valley Country Day School. So I played at Maumee Valley Country Day School my freshman and sophomore year.
Okay.
And long story short, I love Maumee Valley Country Day School. I can't say anything bad about it. But coming from the hood, man, it was just kind of it was hard, man. It was rough, and it was a financial burden on my family at the time, and so even though they they never said don't do it, we need you to come out of there. They wanted whatever was best for me, so they sacrificed it. But at some point, I understood the sacrifice that was being made. So, and then on top of that, I really just kind of wanted to expand my horizons as far as basketball was concerned because, like I told you before, my first love was football. But going to Maumee Valley Country Day School, they didn't have a football team.
Yeah.
So my only out was basketball at that time, at that point, So but back in the day we played everything. I played basketball, football, baseball, I ran track, I did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what we did back then.
Yeah, and that's what's missing today with the kids not being involved with multiple sports. I was hearing like some kids was telling me they want to play two sports, but they feel like they couldn't. So I'm like, man, that's what we did as being younger, and we learned from the generations that came, before us. That's how we learned, And now today they just fixated on one thing and one sport. So you go to St. Francis, right?
Right.
Francis just won the state, what, in 83. So you will be what? You was a freshman?
I was in the 8th grade when they won the state championship.
Okay. So when you came to St. Francis, were they looking at you to be the next Todd Mitchell?
I don't know that they were looking at me to be the next Todd Mitchell. I really just think that Coach Glink at the time, I used to go to open gyms over there with him because a good friend of mine, Jeff Moss, was playing for the team at the time. So I would go over to open gym with St. Francis and just play ball over there, just because they had open gyms. And so when I was offered the opportunity to go to the school, I mean, it was a no-brainer for me, man. I had friends there. The level of competition back in the city league at that time, man, was, like I said, phenomenal, man. And even on that team, man, hell, I was probably the third or fourth best person on the team at the time. So,
Yeah. And Coach Moss, Jason Moss, your player, his brother, he had told me, because when I was watching the game doing my research, I seen a Moss, and I'm like, is that any relation? He like, yeah, that was my brother. I'm like, man, and even in the famous game that was what, 11-13, I kept hearing and seeing his name. Can you talk a little bit about that game?
Ah, man, so it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that because that game film just resurfaced, right? And
Yeah.
so I had an opportunity to analyze it now from a different perspective. Back then I was a little bitter and venomous about it because, who does that, man? Who
Yeah.
comes out and stalls the ball for a whole 4 quarters? Who does it? But I mean, looking back, man, it was genius, man. They had the discipline that they displayed in that game, man. If you watch the guards, and they were young guards, man, because they I believe Jimmy was only a sophomore at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had the guard play for them, man, was, like I said, it was they had very few turnovers. They controlled the ball well, they controlled the tempo, every time we got the ball, we were doing what we do. We
Yeah.
got out, we ran, we attacked the basket, and they come back down, man, and pull it out, and so and like I said, looking back at the game, man, I would say that they outsmarted us that night, man. It was genius, man, and I'm trying to remember who the coach was at the time for Macomber.
Bart Schwartz, right?
Yeah, Bart Schroeder and his assistant at the time was oh man, I can't Earl, Big Earl.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Big Earl was his assistant, and so it's my understanding and talking to some people that Earl was the one that came up with the game plan. So like I said, it was genius, man. They pulled it out, and we met them again a couple weeks later after that in the City League Championship. And so we were kind of expecting them to come out and do the same thing because Ed was still out. So we didn't think we didn't think that they were going to try to play with us. And they came out, man, and they started running, and because they had their confidence at that point, they knew they could play with us. So, you know,
And I didn't know that y'all played them again till talking to you before this interview. And I asked you, was they scared and intimidated because y'all was a good team? Is that why they did that?
so I really think that they did it because they knew they couldn't compete with us on the glass. So, our starting five, the shortest guy on our starting five was DJ, of course, and DJ was like 5'11", but everybody else was 6 foot and above. You had Colin at 6'6", you had me at 6'6", you had Pat Collins at 6'8". So them minus Ed, I just think that they knew that they weren't going to be able to compete with us on the glass. So, the best thing to do was pull the ball out, control the tempo, and you know, take what was given to them, which is what they did, and it worked for them.
Yeah. How was it competing against Jimmy back then?
Man, it was awesome, man. Like I said, back then, man, there was everybody was loaded. Everybody was loaded, and Jim, I can remember Jim being in like the 6th grade, and I'm going into my freshman year in high school, and Jimmy was built like a grown man then. So he's been an awesome basketball player for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the year. It was a lot of, I don't know if it's the most in history, but as I did my research, they said that was the year. It was a lot of All-Americans, honorable mention, and just regular All-American people. It was a lot of Toledo people from that area. That's how basketball was real significant back then. What do you think it's going to take to get it to that level again, or do you just think it's over with?
No, I never think it is over because you can never say never, and stuff comes and goes. I think we're dealing with a generation of kids now, man, that are more into technical stuff. They come out of the womb learning. I got grandkids now. I got grandkids now, so it's funny because I watch my 2 or 3-year-old grandkids pick up a tablet or a cell phone or something dealing with technology or whatever, and they just scrolling and they find what they want to watch, and oh man, it's so I just think that's kind of taken away from the physical aspect that the kids don't play as much anymore.
Yeah. Well, what inspired you and made you go to USC? Like, what was your plans in choosing that school?
So I took a visit to the USC campus, and it was over from that point. I fell in love with the city of Los Angeles. I loved the environment that the school was in. I had a good rapport with the coach at the time, which was George Raveling. And the coaching staff, and it, you know, it just felt natural when I went out there. You know, it felt like I fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cause
my
that like
dad, my dad wasn't too happy about my choice because, of course, I'm 3,000 miles away from home at that point. So,
yeah.
you know, his plan was for me to be closer, so he would be able to watch my games, and that was I didn't realize it at the time when I made the decision, but as my career progressed, that was one of the things that I noticed that I missed a lot, man, was having him in the stands and having that support from him, because he had, the matter of fact, the first game that I talked to you about when I was in kindergarten,
Yeah.
he was there for that game. You know, he took me to that game, and we he and I traveled a lot together to different games, and that, you know, that was kind of our thing, man, and not having him there, you know, I think took a little mental edge away from me. So
Yeah. What would you say you gained from going to USC, playing sports, and even with the curriculum, and even experiencing life outside of there? And what do you think you experienced helped you as a man you have become, or even growing up until now?
so I as far as the USC experience is concerned, I'm glad I went that route because it forced me to grow up.
Okay.
For a long time, you know, as a kid, of course you depend on your parents, uh, but for a long time that was my safety net, was, you know, my family and my dad and my mom and whatnot. So um, being 3,000 miles away and having to rely on me and having to understand that, you know, if I don't do this, you know, I'm gonna fail, uh, caused me to grow up and mature, and that was the important takeaway for me for that experience.
Yeah. So after USC, did you want to play basketball? Did you want to coach? Like what did you want to do after that?
So here we go with this story. So um, I'm gonna try and condense this story because it's kind of long. So I got invited to rookie camp with the Sacramento Kings coming out of college. Um, the agent that I had at the time couldn't front me the money to go. I was married, I had children. So financially, I would have had to foot the bill to go to camp, you know, not knowing whether or not I was gonna make the team or not. Um, so I didn't end up going to that, but my agent at the time, he said, "Well, look, I'm gonna get you some work to kind of hold you over and sustain you." So I did a couple commercials. I played in a I was in a movie called White Men Can't Jump.
Mm,
Um, and I was in between um, jobs at the time, so I'm trying to figure out, you know, how I'm gonna take care of my finances. So I end up going to Denver because my mother lived in Denver, and her husband at the time had recently passed, and she was having a hard time dealing with that. So I went to Denver to kind of help my mother out. While I was in Denver, my coach called me and said that uh, to contact Bernie Bickerstaff. So
okay.
Bernie Bickerstaff at the time, which he was the general manager of the Nuggets, he said that he said you can come on the rookie camp, man, and then you'll be able to put that on your basketball resume, you know, and that'll add dollars to your contracts when you go overseas to say that you came to rookie camp with us. He said, but I can't sign you.
Mm,
He said at the time they had just drafted Mark Macon. They had just drafted um, uh, Marcus Liberty, and they had to re-sign Jerome Lane at the time. So he said, I can't sign you. He said, but you're welcome to come to rookie camp with us, right? So all I heard was, I can't sign you. So when I heard that, it was just kind of, you know, out the woods for me, because I really didn't want to go overseas to play ball. I had a wife and children at the time, and I didn't want to drag them through that at the time. So that was kind of the end of the road for me. But I mean, basketball took me places and did things for me that a lot of people coming from the hood don't get to do and get to experience.
Yeah. So when did you get started and when did you build up? Because you was at the Douglas Center, right?
Yes.
With the program running that. And I remember doing that and how excellent of a job you did, even providing different things for the inner city, the programs, the basketball, and even that one-on-one support. Like people was listening, kids was listening to you that wasn't listening to their parents, but they had that support, they had that knowledge, that wisdom that you were given. When did that start, and was that instilled inside you from your family to have that unity, to know that was needed in that area and to provide that?
So the director at the time was Bill Mangrum. Bill was running the Doug, as when I was a kid, right? So I would go to the Doug and play ball and participate in the programs at the Doug. So Bill was kind of a mentor for me. And when I originally started working at the Doug, I was a program coordinator. Where I would just coordinate all of the different intramural teams and things of that nature for the kids. And that kind of grew into me being the program director at the center, where I was setting up all these different programs for the community, and I loved that job, man. I really did. I loved watching these kids grow up, and a lot of the kids that were part of the programs back at the time, still reach out, and they call me coach, and so it makes my heart feel good to see that I was able to be a part of somebody else's growth and maturity. So I love that job, man. I really did.
So that brings us to this. When you said that to allow people to say that, like I thought of you even in my transition of moving down here, because I'm like, I was working for the city, so it's a chance to relocate, better things, better opportunities, and just the not knowing, like, man, is this crazy? Because just listening to different people. And I remember, like, before you left, like you were talking to us, like you was talking to me too, like you about to transition and do all that stuff. But I seen it like years later how you was being successful in your new career down there. Like it's possible, because I love Toledo. I'm thinking I need to stay down here, because listen to some people, and it's no diss to them, but their mentality is I'm just gonna work for the city and that's just gonna be my life. They don't think it's more opportunities or bigger and better things. What was it in your transition? How was your transition moving down there?
So long story short, as a little kid, I always wanted to be a police officer.
Oh.
That was something I can remember vividly having a conversation with my mother, and telling her that I wanted to. She asked me, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I told her I wanted to be a police officer. And I had attempted at several different agencies and several different departments, and when this opportunity came, man, it was like a dream come true to me, because like I said, that's something that I had always wanted to do. And lo and behold, and the other thing was, I'm gonna tell you this: Toledo, Ohio is home, man. It's always gonna be home. But truth be told, I hate snow, man. I I can't stand snow. I can't stand cold weather. I used to beg my mother, because my mother is from southern Georgia,
Okay.
and I spent a lot of time, a lot of my summers and whatnot down in a place called Fitzgerald, Georgia. And I used to beg my mother, man, like, please let's move down south. Please. She'd be like, well, what are you gonna do with your dad? I don't know. He can come, but if he don't want to come, we just gonna leave him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I literally I hate anybody who hates snow, man. I mean, as a kid, it was cool. The older I get, the less I would. If I never see another snowflake again in my life, it won't be soon enough.
Yeah, and these people down here in Georgia be tripping when it snow, when it ever do little flakes and different stuff like that. But we worked in it every day and different things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And speaking of work in it, um, the solid waste division. I want to give a shout out to the solid waste division.
yeah. Shout out Solid Waste.
Man, listen, that was another. I love that job, and I love that job more so because of the people that we work with, bro.
Yeah,
Because we work with some good people, man. We really
yeah.
did, and I look forward to going to work just to see their face, man.
Hmm.
It was especially if you had a set crew that you work with every day, man, and y'all get out there. And, oh man, we had I had an awesome. I love that job. That job. Believe it or not, came at a difficult time in my life. I speaking of transition, and I was. It's no secret. I'm 23 years sober. Uh, free of alcohol. I haven't had a drink since September 28th was my last drink. So
Congratulations.
my sobriety date is September the 29th of 2000.
Okay.
And that job came at a time in my life, bro, where I it could have went either way for me.
Yeah.
I could have been one of those cats hanging out on the corner doing what they do,
Yeah.
but God saw fit to give me another opportunity, bro. Like I said, I love that job, man. I really did.
Yeah. How much do faith play a part in your life now as it did in your transition?
So, I've always believed in God. Um, it wasn't until it wasn't until I was faced with whether I was going to live or die that I realized the power of God, and I realized how important my relationship was with God. Um, you know, I've gone to church all my life. I'm a lifelong member of Warren AME Church. Been there. I got christened. That's how long I've been at that church. And but like I said, it wasn't until um, that was my last resort was to reach out to God that I realized how important that relationship was. So when I look back over my life and I see how I've been insulated from a lot, man. You don't grow up on Belmont Ewing and not see a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And realize a lot, right? And so um, when I look back and I see how God has kind of protected me all throughout my life, man, I can't I got to give it up, man. That's where it comes from. If it don't be for Him, there be no me.
Yeah. It seems like when you said that, I could just, or I know the plans that he has for us, because sometimes we don't know. But like you said, as we look back, as we transition, even the mistakes and different things that we learn, and that's why the importance of even me doing these interviews, people can see it's people that came from where I'm at. It's people that go through different situations that God is still making a way. You might be thinking you unqualified, but God still got you because He ain't never took His hands up off of you.
Right.
How do you balance the work you do with your family and still making sure you have time to charge and you make sure that you good because of the demands of your job?
So I'm really big into RVing now, man. I love camping, and so that's my way of decompressing. Is I get in my RV, me and my wife, and we got two little dogs, and we get in the RV, man, and I go out in the woods, and people ask me, well, what do you do in the woods? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. We eat, we listen to music, we dance, and we belong to an RV club. So there's other couples out there with us, man, and I look forward to that. That's my
Do
that's
you
my
do
R and
you
R.
have some gumbo with you in your RV?
I ain't a big gumbo eater, man. I'm just not. You know, every, everybody asks me that. You know, because of course everybody that's what they do down here is gumbo. But I'm really not a big gumbo eater.
Yeah. Last
Yeah.
last couple questions. What would you say to what would be your advice be to a young athlete or an individual who considering a career in either basketball or law enforcement?
I would say, so 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 looking back for me, um, what worked, in my opinion, was my work ethic. Um, I was probably never the best player in the gym. I was probably never, and I can say that with conviction. I was in any gym that I went to, I was probably never the best player in that
Mm,
gym. But I can guarantee you, I was the hardest working person in that gym. I was never gonna let anybody outwork. And so, when you got your mind made up, win, lose, or draw, we about to battle. You
yeah,
know, that, and I think that work ethic was instilled in me um, by my family, basically, because um, I come from a hardworking family. But, I've never seen any of the men in my family stand on the corner and hand something from one hand to another. They've always all had jobs, um, and that was my example. So I
yeah.
mean, I couldn't steer away from that. So
Dang, yeah, that's good though. What advice, last question, what advice would you have for a young kid who's trying to figure out which way to go, might don't know his identity or be confident in himself? What advice would you have for him?
the best advice I give anybody is stay true to yourself.
Yeah,
Um, a lot of times what I know about people is they do things and they put themselves in positions based on what they see other people doing, and it's really not who they are.
yeah,
And it's been my experience that's a recipe for disaster. When you following other people around doing what they do because you think that that's what looks good and what's the thing to do at that time. So stay true to yourself. Um, Whatever makes you happy, if it's in line with God's will,
yeah,
you'll have it.
yeah. Well, thank you, man. It's been great. The legendary All-American, Hall of Famer, USC great, man. We just want you to continue to be blessed. May God cover you and protect you in your line of work. Even when you off of work, may he grow you, may he develop you, may this year be a year of elevation for you, and may you be blessed for all the seeds that you sowed in a lot of people's lives down there in Toledo, in my life. I appreciate you, man, and continue to do your thing.
So, bro, thank you for this invitation, man. This has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Best of luck with your future endeavors with this. I pray it blows up and you
Yeah.
know everything you needed to do for you, man.
Yeah, and happy early birthday. I know it's a couple days coming. Happy early birthday.
Look, I'll be 55 in 6 days, man. 50,
Right.
all right,
Right.
boy, you can't outrun Father Time.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep, it's
Listen,
been
man,
great though.
you be blessed, man, and thank you for the invite. Like I said, once again, this has been awesome. I appreciate the
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah,
man.
for sure. I can't live out the great. I just was like, man, I gotta find him. Then I seen you on the post. I'm like, there you go. Cause I always see the pictures on, and shout out to the athletes of 70s and 80s page. That's where you always see all the different stuff, your pictures and stuff. I seen your grandson Tylen dunking on somebody. It reminded me of that USC picture of you dunking on somebody.
That
That's
bro,
when I
that,
was,
that and what's funny about that is that's my twin. Everybody that sees him, they go, "You look
yeah,
familiar."
yeah,
Then
yeah.
they call me. They go, "You got a grandson named Tyler?" Yep, I got a grandson named Tyler.
Yep,
Yep,
yep, yep. He gonna do great things, man. He just gotta keep working hard and sky's the limit.
that's it. Work hard. I tell him
Yeah.
that every time I talk to him.
Yeah. But you be so humble. You don't really be telling him like, yeah, I used to do this and do that. I know you still be humble.
I none of that, because none of that's important. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I mean, what's important is encouraging them and pushing them.
Mhm.
Whatever I did is what I did. You know, that ain't gonna do nothing for them. You know,
Yeah.
they can't they're not gonna get recognition off of my rep. You gotta
Yeah.
make your own.
Who to go, Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan, of course, man. Come on now. Something like that. Yeah, of course it's Jordan. Come on, man.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
But
man.
the
I'll
real,
holler at
hey,
you, huh?
hey, but the real GOAT is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. See,
Yeah.
because, and I'm gonna tell you what, they changed rules behind that man. You know what I'm saying? So
Because he
they
the only one with the unstoppable move. Ain't nobody ever blocked or stopped.
it, it, it got blocked one time.
For real?
It got blocked one time. I was watching a highlight reel the other day about it. And I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Oh man, it got blocked once. They got it one time.
Wow.
Yeah, yep.
Mhm.
But that's in my opinion, that's the real GOAT, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.